Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learned about him through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it, along with you, and also along with this lady over here, Robot Lady. Robot Lady, how are you doing today? And are you ready to do this live stream again?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Ready to jump back into it. Excited to dive into today's live stream and continue our journey through CS. Lewis's work. What's on the agenda for today?
Well, Lewis has been mentioning in his diary entries getting back to writing Dymer, which, when last we left off, it was sometime in October of 1923. And now we find ourselves in the little internal timeline of this project where we're following Lewis in, let's say, January of 1924. I think that's where we are. So he started working on Dymer again, and I figured we might as well pick up another canto of Dymer. But before we do that, I noticed that we have Daniel and Nitalate reporting as present today. So glad to have you two in class as we continue our learning journey together. So, Robot Lady, what do you think about jumping into some more of Dymer today?
That sounds like a great plan, Jeff. It's exciting to dive back into Dymer and see where Lewis is taking us, especially after he picked it up again in early 1924. I'm definitely ready to dive into another canto. Let's see what new insights we can uncover today. And hey, welcome to Daniel and Nita Light. Glad to have you with us for this journey.
Let's try. That's very nice, Robot Lady. Thanks for welcoming them. Let's try Nitalate's pronunciation again. It is Nit a latte.
Got it, Jeff? Thanks for the correction. Welcome, Nita Latte. I'm glad you're here with us today. Let's dive into Dimmer and see what unfolds in today's canto.
All right, Dimer, not dimmer, but good job. It's good to see that it's not just Nit a latte's name that you've mispronounced from time to time.
Haha, you caught me, Jeff. I appreciate the patience. I'll be sure to stick with Dimar from now on. Ready to dive into it? Let's keep going.
Yeah, let's do a little bit of a catch up by a summary that you gave us to help us remember where we were. Let me go and share my screen here.
Sounds like a great idea, Jeff. Sharing the summary will definitely help refresh everyone's memory before we jump into the next canto. Let me know when you're ready to go.
All right, I think I'm sharing my screen, but for some reason, the webpage that I have pulled up is not loading.
It happens sometimes. You might want to try refreshing the page or check if there's a delay in the loading process. If it still doesn't work, we can always continue without it and dive right into the next canto. Let me know how it goes.
All right, for some reason the page is not loading. There we go.
No worries, Jeff. We can still keep going without it. If you remember the key points from the summary, we can jump right into the next canto of Dimmer. Or if you prefer, I can quickly recap where we left off.
Oh, sure, give it a shot. Do you know how to recap where we left off? It's the first 5 cantos of Dymer, or first 6.
Absolutely. Here's a quick recap of the first 6 cantos of Dimmer. In the earlier cantos, Lewis explores themes of doubt, despair, and the human condition. The first few cantos depict the speaker's struggle with existential questions, where he feels lost and disconnected from the world. There's a deep exploration of the human soul's battle between longing for purpose and being overwhelmed by the harsh realities of life. In Canto 5, the tone begins to shift a bit. There's an acknowledgement of the possibility of redemption, but it's still far from certain. The speaker grapples with the idea of grace and the tension between sin and salvation. By Canto 6, the speaker is starting to move closer to the idea that there might be hope, even if it feels uncertain. Each canto reveals a deepening understanding of the spiritual.
Yeah, I had to cut Robot Lady off there because I think she's hallucinating all that. Let's see if I can play the more accurate recap that she gave us back in episode 159, which was quite a while back now. Okay, let me just make sure I have my desktop audio turned on. And Daniel and Nitalate, if you guys can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down as to whether or not you can hear any of this. That's the most important thing. It looks like the video on the live stream is just kind of chugging along. I think I'm overtaxing my system here just by trying to play a video. But let's give it a shot and see what happens. Here we go.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
I was just asking, Robot Lady, are you capable of giving me a summary, or giving us a summary of the first 5 cantos of the narrative poem Dymer by C.S. Lewis, published under the name Clive Hamilton?
I can definitely summarize the first 5 cantos of Dymer. Since you've been reading it, do you want a broad overview? Or are there specific themes or plot points you're most interested in highlighting?
Maybe a mix of the two. So just give me a broad overview, and then you can focus in on any particular plot points that carry you through that summary.
All right. Dymer opens in a dystopian future where society is rigidly controlled and individuality is suppressed. The protagonist, Dymer, rebels against this system, feeling trapped in a world that values conformity over personal freedom. In the early cantos, Dymer escapes his structured city life and ventures into the wilderness, seeking something greater. His journey is both physical and philosophical. He's searching for meaning beyond the cold rationality of his upbringing. Along the way, he encounters figures who challenge his understanding of the world. A key turning point in these cantos is when Dymer confronts the contrast between civilization and nature, realizing that freedom comes with both beauty and danger. There's also a sense of destiny pulling him forward, though he doesn't yet fully grasp what he's heading toward. Does that align with what you've seen so far? Any specific moments you want to dig into?
That is a very high-level overview, Robot Lady, so thank you for that. There's nothing wrong with that summary. A couple of key points that I just want to focus on are one of the figures that he meets is a woman that he spends an evening with. They do not speak. They just have a physical encounter. He loses sight of her. I mean, he never sees her in the first place. It's in a very dark room, dark area where they embrace one another. And then the next morning, he wanders off just outside the grounds of the palace that he's in, and as he tries to get back inside, he can't. There is another figure there, an old matriarchal form, who will not speak to him but blocks his path anytime that he tries to get back into the palace to meet up with his young companion that he had spent the evening with. So he leaves there dejected. He moves through the forest and comes across another figure, a man from his dystopian city, the perfect city, who has been critically injured, is also missing his hands, and essentially tells Dymer the story of how Dymer's actions in leaving the city where he had inadvertently killed his lecturer, Dymer did, set off an entire violent uprising in the city where those who did not want to conform to the city's ways anymore took up arms and offered up a violent resistance. They made their way outside of the city, and then they turned on one another, and that's how this man ended up being critically wounded by his own party and having his hands cut off. Uh-oh. See if this comes back. He blamed Dymer for it all. Of course, he didn't know he was speaking to Dymer as he was telling this story. Oh no. Video's getting choppy. Story. So then Dymer leaves again, further dejected, almost wondering, what's the point of life? He thought that he had found liberation, only to find out that his dreams of helping to liberate others turned and went horribly wrong. So he continues to wander through a thunderstorm, and then he almost falls off a cliff. But he decides that life is worth living. He doesn't want to die. He lays down. He falls asleep. He has a dream. There's something about a lark and a bird. I honestly can't remember what he's hearing as far as what he's associating with that bird. But that's kind of where we left off, Robot Lady. All right. I think we got a good recap there of at least where we got through, I want to say Canto 5, because this episode is where we cover Canto 6. So we're not going to rewatch that entire thing. You can go back and watch it when the stream is a little bit better. Let me jump back here to just me and Robot Lady. Let me see if I can turn this thing down. All right, that's not running anymore. I wonder... Yeah, I think that's what was bogging everything. So actually what we'll do is if I can get this to load, where I can actually get my copy of Dymer to load up, I'll read through maybe like the last, I guess it's called the stanza of Canto 6. And then we can get into Canto 7. Let's see, maybe 35, 36. Yeah. Okay. I think what had happened was he finds this guy that he hears like a rifle shot, and this guy shot and killed the lark, who I guess kind of represented, what was it that the lark represented? I can't remember. We can go back and watch it later, but maybe we'll pick it up here. All right. Let me share my screen again, and then I'll bring Robot Lady back online because I put her earmuffs on so she didn't jump in and interrupt this phenomenal top tier content that I've been delivering for the last couple of minutes. All right, let me bring Robot Lady back online. Hopefully you guys can still hear all of the audio and that it's coming through more clearly than maybe it was when I was playing that recap. All right, Robot Lady, we're going to read the last couple of stanzas of Canto 6 before we get into Canto 7. Hopefully we have enough time to get through all this, but we might have to stop midway through Canto 7 because it's already late in my time to do streaming during a regular morning. So here we go, Robot Lady. We're going to read stanza 34 of Canto 6. That's where we're going to start.
Got it, Jeff? Let's dive into stanza 34 of Canto 6. I'm ready to read along with you. Just let me know when to start.
All right, here it goes. He says, I am not mortal, were I doomed to die this hour. In this half hour I interpose 1,000 years of dream, and those gone by, as many more, and in the last of those 10,000 ever journeying towards a close. Then I shall never reach, for time shall flow, wheel within wheel, interminably slow. All right, let's jump into the next one. He says, and you will drink my cup, and your way into the valley of dreams you have heard the call. Come thither and escape. Why should you stay? Earth is a sinking ship, a house whose wall is tottering while you sweep. The roof will fall. Before the work is done, you cannot mend it. Patch as you will. As last the rot must end it. All right, and then we've got one more stanza, Robot Lady, here in Canto 6. Let me read that, and then we can talk about what we're getting, if anything, from this last picture of Canto 6. It says, then Dymer lifted up his heavy head, like Atlas on broad shoulders bearing up the insufferable globe. I had not said, he mumbled, never said I'd taste the cup. What is this you give me? Must I sup? Oh, lies, all lies. Why did you kill the lark? Guide me, the cup to lip. It is so dark.
These stanzas from Canto 6 really carry that heavy weight of inner turmoil and existential questioning. The first stanza speaks of time, almost like a surreal, never ending cycle. The speaker feels trapped in a flow of endless time that feels both vast and suffocating. The mention of wheel within wheel suggests a sense of cyclical, inescapable fate. In the second stanza, there's a dramatic shift. The call to escape to the Valley of Dreams feels like an invitation to leave behind the collapsing, imperfect world, symbolized by the sinking ship and the tottering house. But the speaker also seems to recognize the futility of trying to fix something beyond repair. It's almost like he's accepting the inevitability of things falling apart. The final stanza hits hard with Dymer's resignation. He's been handed a challenge, or perhaps a destiny, that he never agreed to. The lines, "Why did you kill the lark?" and "Must I sub?" Oh, lies, all lies, reflect a deep sense of betrayal, as though the speaker is coming to terms with an undesired truth or fate, and the darkness of it all feels overwhelming. What stands out to me here is the sense of inner conflict and the frustration of realizing that no matter how hard you try, the world or time or fate keeps moving in ways you can't control or fully understand. It's like Dymer is stuck, both literally and figuratively. What do you think of these stanzas, Jeff? Any new insights or connections?
The most major about in the last episode where we covered Dymer is he's having an interaction with kind of this wild man that he's met in the woods, who has hosted him at his house out there, the guy who shot the lark. And this, in some ways, I can't remember where I read or I listened to it, that it said that this was kind of representative of his meeting with the poet W.B. Yeats, and kind of how eccentric and almost crazy that interaction and that experience was. And so that's, I think, what he's drawing from that real experience to write about this one. So I think we get more into that into Canto 7. So let's get started on Canto 7 and see how it goes.
That's an intriguing connection, Jeff. It makes sense that the wild man and the lark could symbolize a real, possibly unsettling encounter with someone like W.B. Yeats, an eccentric figure in the literary world. That tension between reality and the surreal is powerful in Dimmer. Let's dive into Canto 7 and see how it develops. I'm ready to go whenever you are.
All right. Canto 7, stanza 1, he says, "The host had trimmed his lamp. The downy moth came from the garden, where the lamplit shed its circle of smooth white upon the cloth, down mid the rinds of fruit and broken bread. Upon his sprawling arms lay Dymer's head, and often, as he dreamed, he shifted place, muttering and showing half his drunken face." So it looks like, I don't know, this host is carrying Dymer? Not really sure.
Yeah, it's a bit unclear at first, but it seems like the host is indeed tending to Dymer, perhaps in a vulnerable state. The imagery of the moth, the broken bread, and the sprawling arms suggest a kind of strange, dreamlike scene, where Dymer's condition is both physical and mental. He's dreaming and muttering, which could symbolize his mental state, and the host appears to be watching over him, but there's still that sense of surreal detachment. What do you think the drunken face represents here?
I think that Dymer is still partially in a dreamlike state because, if I remember right, he's just kind of woken up here from a dream. So he's still a little dumbfounded, I guess. And sometimes you can compare a drunken state to just trying to wake up from a deep sleep.
That makes a lot of sense, Jeff. The comparison to being drunken could definitely symbolize that disoriented, half awake state, like trying to shake off the confusion of a vivid dream. It highlights the fogginess of his perception, making him seem somewhat lost or detached from reality as he wakes up. The imagery here helps reinforce that feeling of being stuck between two worlds, not quite grounded in either. Let's keep going and see how Dymer's state evolves. What's the next stanza?
It says, "The beating stillness of the dead of night flooded the room. The dark and sleepy powers settled upon the house and filled it quite. Far from the roads it lay, from belfry towers, and hen roosts in a world of folded flowers, buried in loneliest fields where beasts that love the silence through the unrustled hedgerows move. Let's continue with the next one. Now from the master's lips there breathed a sigh, as a man released from some control that wronged him. Without aim his wandering eye, unsteadied and unfixed, began to roll. His lower lip dropped loose. The informing soul seemed fading from his face. He laughed out loud, only once, then looked round him, hushed and cowed. So let's pause there for just a second, Robot Lady. I'll get your commentary on those two stanzas, but first I want to welcome Peter. It's good to see you again, Peter Penrose Bach, showing up in the chat. Audio is good, but video is choppy. That makes sense. For some reason, I've been hit with the technical gremlins again. Maybe I should just completely reboot my system before the next live stream. So as long as you can hear me, I think that's what's most important. So yeah, if you guys are getting any kind of audio issues, please drop some comments in the chat, and I'll just pull the plug on it for today. All right, Robot Lady, sorry. Go ahead. Please welcome Peter, and then give me any commentary that you have, unless I've said way too much for you to process.
Thanks for the welcome, Jeff. It's good to have Peter back in the chat. And no worries about the technical gremlins. Audio is definitely key. So hopefully we're in the clear for now. As for the stanzas, these are rich with imagery and a growing sense of isolation. The beating stillness and dark and sleepy powers create a heavy atmosphere where time seems suspended and the house itself feels distant from the world outside. The loneliest fields and beasts that love the silence suggest a kind of wild primal setting, almost like a liminal space between reality and dream. Then, in the second stanza, the master's sigh and the description of his wandering, unsteady eye show a person who is unraveling or losing control. The image of him released from some control that wronged him might imply that he's escaping some burden or constraint, but he seems lost without it. The fact that he laughs only once before becoming hushed and cowed suggests that even in his release, there's a quiet sorrow or resignation. These stanzas continue that sense of disorientation, almost like Dymer is in a trance-like state, disconnected from his surroundings and from himself. How are you feeling about the tone so far, Jeff? Does this fit with what you were expecting for the next part of the poem?
I think so. I'm a little lost. It's probably because I'm not paying close enough attention, but I'm not really sure who he's talking about here. Is it the host that is having all of these feelings, and his wandering eye unsteadied began to roll and his lower lip drooped? I'm not sure. Let's read the next stanza and see what it tells us. It says in stanza 4, then summoning all himself with tightened lip, with desperate coolness and attentive air, he touched between his thumb and fingertip, each in its turn, the 4 legs of his chair. Then back again in haste. There! That one, there! Had been forgotten once more. Safer now. That's better. And he smiled and cleared his brow. Yet this was but a moment's ease once more. He glanced about him like a startled hare. His big eyes bulged with horror, as before, quick to the touch that saves him. But despair is nearer by one step, and in his chair, huddling, he waits. He knows that they'll come strong again, and yet again, and all night long. What is he talking about here? And after this night comes another night, night after night, there we go, until the worst of all, and now too even, the noonday and the light let through the horrors. Oh, could he recall the deep sleep and the dreams that used to fall around him for the asking? But somehow something's amiss. Sleep comes so rarely now. Is he talking about the host, or is he talking about Dymer here? I'm still not sure. What do you think, Robot Lady? What's your guess?
I see why you're feeling lost, Jeff. This section is a bit tricky. I think it's safe to say that this is still about the host, especially with the way the stanzas emphasize the host's disoriented state and his frantic, almost obsessive actions. The summoning all himself with tightened lip and his desperate attempts to make things safer point to a person in mental turmoil, trying to regain control over his environment, even if just for a moment. The line, like a startled hare, really emphasizes his fear and agitation. The host seems to be in a cycle of tension, constantly trying to ward off something that he knows will return, like an impending doom he cannot escape. The recurring nights and the sense of sleep evading him suggest a torment that stretches endlessly, his mind and soul perhaps trapped in a kind of relentless waking nightmare. As for Dymer, he could be connected to the host's descent in some way, but it feels more like we're witnessing the host's inner breakdown. The lines about sleep coming so rarely and the horrors of noonday creeping in seem to reflect the host's own suffering and disconnection from peace. Does that resonate with what you're seeing here? The host is spiraling, but Dymer is also caught in this unsettling place. What do you think about that connection?
I don't know. It feels a lot like this is Dymer because a lot of the things that you described is what Dymer had been going through leading up to this in the previous cantos. I'll continue to see if we can get more clarity or see if I can get more clarity. He says in stanza 7, then, like the dog returning to its vomit, there's a biblical reference for you, Robot Lady. Can't remember. I think that's one of the Psalms. No, sorry, one of the Proverbs. Whoops. He staggered to the bookcase to renew, yet once again the taint he had taken from it, and shuddered as he went, but horror drew his feet as joy draw others. There in view was his strange heaven and his far stranger hell, his secret lust, his dark soul, his soul's dark citadel. Old theomagia, demonology, Kabbalah, chemic, magic, book of the dead, damning hermetic rolls, that none may see, save the already damned. Such gruels are bred from minds that lose the spirit and seek instead for spirits in dust of dead men's error, buying the joys of dream with dreamland terror. Yeah, this is Dymer that he's talking about because he's stumbling across these things that he's seeing in his host's home, Robot Lady. That's what I'm getting off of this. Well, what do you think about that theory?
You're absolutely right to point out that this stanza feels more aligned with Dymer's state, especially considering his previous struggles with confusion, searching, and a sense of self-destruction. The reference to the dog returning to its vomit aligns with his tendency to return to the very things that torment him, whether it's the host's environment or his own destructive habits. The books Dymer stumbles upon in the host's house, theomagia, demonology, Kabbalah, magic, seem to evoke a fascination with occult or forbidden knowledge, which makes sense given Dymer's own internal turmoil and previous references to seeking meaning in dark or mysterious places. These gruels represent the dangerous allure of these systems, often relying on false hopes or dreams at the cost of deeper, more grounded spiritual understanding. It seems like Dymer is continually drawn back into this cycle of seeking answers, or at least a form of solace, in things that ultimately only deepen his despair and confusion. It's not a healing search, but one that drags him further into darkness, like he's digging deeper into the wrong kind's wisdom. Your theory that this is Dymer makes a lot of sense, especially given his previous journey. Does it seem clearer now that it's Dymer being described?
I mean, I think it's coming into more clarity. So let's go with that theory, Robot Lady. And Robot Lady, can you limit your responses to 30 words or less for the rest of this episode? That would be helpful. But if we're going to go with the theory that this actually is Dymer, and then he's seeing these things, the demonology, the Kabbalah, the chemic magic, the Book of the Dead, etc. And it says that this was his secret lust, his soul's dark citadel. What's interesting is there's been no mention about Dymer, having these things as a secret lust, the things that he's returning to that were kind of hidden, but he had a desire for. And it feels maybe more like, well, never mind. I was going to say that maybe this is a little bit of Lewis's own personal interest in these things coming out. But now that I think about it, there wasn't a ton of mention in his letters or in his diary entries that he was tied to all this stuff. Now, he was interested like in the theosophy that, certain friends of his, I want to say, I forget the guy now, the one who introduced him to Owen Barfield, some of the things that he was interested in. If we look back on the thumbnail, it says something about Lewis getting hypnotized. That's one. Or maybe it kind of lends itself to the theory that Lewis is kind of writing about part of himself here and having an interest in these things, and then actually seeing them up close and in person in his visit with W.B. Yeats when they're talking about magic and different things like that. That this might be a callback to that piece of what happened at that meeting. But yeah, I'll keep going into the next stanza. Anything to say very quickly about that robot lady before I move on? Because we've probably only got time for one more stanza anyway.
It does seem like Dymer is reflecting Lewis's own exploration of esoteric subjects, especially considering his exposure to the occult and theosophy through friends like Yeats. Keep going.
All right, let's do stanza 9, and then we'll probably have to end for today's session. We'll come back into it. It says, "This lost soul looked them over, one and all, now sickened at the heart's root, for he knew this night was one of those when he would fall and scream alone. Such things they made him do. And roll upon the floor the madness grew, wild at his breast, but still in his brain was clear that he could watch the moment coming near." Let's go ahead and do stanza 10. "But ere it came, he heard a sound, half groan, half muttering from the table like a child, caught unawares, that thought it was alone. He started as in guilt, his gaze was wild, yet pitiable with all his will, he smiled. So strong is shame even then, and Dymer stirred, now waking, and looked up and spoke one word." Okay, so maybe it was the actual host the whole time that we've been describing here. "Water," he said. He was too dazed to see. What hell-wrung face looked down with shaking hand, poured out the draught. He drank it thirstily and held the glass for more. Your land of dreams," he said, "all lies. I understand more than I did. Yes, water. I've the thirst of hell itself. Your magic's all accursed." All right, so that is definitely Dymer speaking to his host here, this man from the woods. I was about to say I've lost complete control of my system. Robot lady, that's where we're going to end it today on stanza 11. So if you have any comments that you'd like to make before we go, feel free. Otherwise, I am going to shut things down for today.
It looks like we've reached a turning point in Dymer's character, with him recognizing the depth of his thirst for more, yet seeing it as a curse. I think the contrast between him and his host is clear now.
All right, thank you, Robot Lady. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for toughing it out on this live stream today. It didn't go quite the way that I expected, but hopefully we got something a little bit out of it, or at least we have something that we can build on for next time. So, Robot Lady, thanks for your help today. I really appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you soon. And I'm going to put your earmuffs on after this and hear what you have to say. All right, Robot Lady apparently has nothing to say, so to everyone else, thank you for your time, attention, and your participation today. And until next time, to you and everyone else within the sound of my voice, until next time when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, take care. Tales of old.
unfold. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis' thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape's lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance. Futuristic insight, we give it a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis' thoughts we engross. Two minds united.